I didn't expect anything to happen that night. That's the part that still bothers me. How ordinary it was supposed to be. The family gathering was already loud when I arrived. Too many voices stacked on top of each other. The smell of fried food clinging to my jacket. Someone laughing too hard at a joke that wasn't funny. I remember thinking I'd stay an hour, make my rounds, then disappear before anyone asked me about my job or my plans or why I was still figuring things out. That's when I saw her. She was standing near the back of the room, half turned away from the noise, holding a glass she hadn't touched. Mid-40s, maybe older. Calm in a way that didn't ask for attention, but somehow pulled it anyway. Her hair was tied back loosely, like she'd done it without a mirror. She wore confidence the way some people wear perfume. Not loud, but unmistakable once you noticed it. I knew who she was, technically. A relative by marriage. Someone I'd seen before at events like this. Always polite, always slightly removed. The kind of woman who listened more than she spoke, but when she did speak, people leaned in. Our eyes met once. Just once. And then she looked away, as if she'd already taken more than she meant to. I tried to focus on the room. The clatter of plates. My uncle's voice rising as he told the same story again. I told myself not to look back. I did anyway. She was watching me this time. Not staring, just aware. Like she'd been waiting for me to notice. Later, when I escaped to the hallway near the back offices, the quiet part of the building where the family kept old storage rooms and paperwork, I felt the shift before I heard her voice. "Hey," she said. I turned. She was closer than I expected, standing just inside the doorway, one hand resting lightly on the frame like she might leave at any second. The hallway smelled faintly of oil and dust. The place doubled as a repair shop during the week, tools hanging on the walls like they'd been forgotten mid-thought. "Hi," I said, suddenly aware of my hands. I shoved them into my pockets. She smiled, but it didn't fully settle. "You looked like you needed air." "Yeah," I said too quickly. I did. There was a pause. Not awkward, heavier than that. The kind where both people are listening for something beneath the silence. She glanced back toward the noise, then back at me. Her voice dropped, not secretive, just careful. "Can I steal you for a second?" I followed her without thinking. She led me a few steps down the hall, just far enough that the laughter faded into a low hum. She stopped and turned to face me, folding her arms loosely, not defensive, just grounding herself. Up close, I noticed small things. A faint crease between her brows, like she worried often but refused to let it show. A thin bracelet on her wrist, worn smooth with age. Her eyes, steady, observant, held mine a second longer than necessary. "I don't usually do this," she said, then stopped. Pressed her lips together. Started again. I've been wanting to say something." My heart kicked, sharp and sudden. "Okay," I said, even though I had no idea what that meant. Another pause. She exhaled slowly, like she'd been holding that breath all evening. "I have a secret for you." The words landed softly. No drama, no explanation, just that. Before I could ask what she meant, someone called her name from the other room. She flinched, barely, then smiled at me, apologetic. "Later," she said. Not a promise, not a dismissal, just a thread left hanging. She walked away, her steps unhurried, leaving me alone in the quiet hallway with the smell of dust and oil and something else I couldn't place. I went back to the noise eventually. I laughed when expected. I nodded through conversations I didn't hear. But all night, all I could think about was the way she'd said it. "I have a secret for you." Like it was already mine, whether I wanted it or not. I didn't see her again for almost a week, and that space did something to me. It stretched the moment thin, pulled it apart until every small detail replayed on its own. The hallway, the way her voice dropped, the word later, unfinished, still hovering. The second time wasn't planned either. Nothing important ever is. She showed up at the repair shop late afternoon, just before closing. The bell above the door rang once, tired sounding, and when I looked up from the counter, there she was, framed by the fading light outside, one hand on her bag strap, like she'd almost turned around. "Hey," she said, softer than before. I wiped my hands on a rag that was already clean. "Hi." She smiled, polite, controlled. Different. The ease from the family gathering was gone, replaced by something tighter, guarded. "I heard you work here now," she said, glancing around the shop. The shelves were cluttered, tools half organized, a radio humming low in the corner. "Ordinary. Safe. Yeah. Most days." She nodded, like she was filing that away. "My car's making a noise. I thought I'd ask before it got worse." I followed her outside. The air was cooler, heavy with the smell of metal and oil. As I leaned under the hood, she stood a few steps back, arms folded, not closed off, just careful, like she didn't want to intrude. While I worked, I could feel her watching, not in a way that pressed, more like attention she didn't realize she was giving. "You look tired," I said without thinking. She let out a short laugh. It slipped out before she could stop it. "Do I?" "Yeah," I said, in a quiet way. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she rubbed her hands together, slow, like she was warming them even though it wasn't cold. I noticed how her fingers trembled just a little before she tucked them under her arms. "Life's been full," she said finally. Not complaining, not explaining. I nodded. I didn't push. That seemed important. When I finished, I closed the hood and leaned back. "It's nothing serious. Loose belt." I tightened it. She stepped closer, peering like she understood what she was looking at. She didn't, but she tried anyway. That made something twist in my chest. "Thank you," she said. Then quieter, "I don't like asking for help." "I know," I said. She looked at me then, really looked. Her eyes softened, just for a second, like I'd touched something private without meaning to. There was a pause. Not empty. Loaded. "I never told you the secret," she said suddenly. My breath caught. "No." She glanced toward the road, then back at me. Hesitated. Her hand lifted, stopped, then dropped back to her side. "Another time," she said. Again. This time, when she walked away, she didn't look back. But she left her scarf on the counter inside. I held it longer than necessary, breathing in the faint trace of her perfume, wondering why something so small felt like an invitation I didn't know how to return. The rain started without warning, heavy and sudden, drumming against the shop's tin roof like it was trying to get inside. I was locking up when I saw her car pull in again, headlights cutting through the gray. It was late enough that I almost pretended I hadn't noticed. Almost. She came in damp around the edges, hair loosened by the weather, cheeks flushed from the cold. She smelled like rain and that same soft perfume, quieter now, mixed with something tired. "I hope this isn't weird," she said, standing just inside the door. I was nearby. "It's fine," I said. "I was just closing." She nodded, then hesitated. "Could I just sit for a minute?" "The rain's bad." I told myself that's all it was. Weather. Timing. We sat at the small metal table near the back, the one cluttered with invoices and an old desk lamp that buzzed when you turned it on. The radio was off. The shop felt different at night, stripped down, every sound louder. The rain filled the gaps. She wrapped her hands around a paper cup of coffee I poured for her, even though it had been sitting too long on the warmer. She didn't comment on the bitterness. "You keep doing that," I said. "Doing what?" "Showing up when you don't have to." A corner of her mouth lifted. Not a smile. "Maybe I do." Silence settled between us. Not uncomfortable, but dense. She stared into the cup like it might answer something for her. "I almost told you," she said. My chest tightened. "When?" "Both times." She shook her head, a small, frustrated motion. I keep stopping myself. "Why?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached up and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Her hand lingered there longer than necessary. I noticed the faint dark circles under her eyes, the way her shoulders sloped like she'd been carrying weight too long. "Because," she said carefully, "some things don't stay small once you say them out loud." I leaned back, giving her space I didn't want to give. "I'm not asking you to tell me." "I know," she said. "That's the problem." Her phone buzzed on the table between us. She glanced at the screen and went still. The name lit up her face for half a second before she turned it face down. "You don't have to." I started. "It's fine," she said quickly. Too quickly. "Just history." The rain grew louder, like it was listening. She stood, restless, walked a few steps away, then stopped near the workbench. Her fingers traced the edge of it absently. When she turned back to me, Something in her expression had shifted, thinner, more exposed. "I think about you more than I should," she said, almost like she hadn't meant to. I stood too. The distance between us shrank to less than an arm's length. I could see the pulse at her throat, feel the heat of her even without touching. "I don't want to make this harder," I said. She laughed softly. "You already have." For a moment, neither of us moved. My hand lifted, stopped just short of her wrist, close enough to feel the warmth. She looked down at the space between us, then back up. And for one breath, it felt like we might cross it. We didn't talk for 3 days after that night. No messages, no excuses, just a silence that felt deliberate, like we were both testing whether it would hurt. It did. On the 4th day, she came back. No rain this time. Late afternoon lights slanted through the shop windows, catching dust in the air. I heard her before I saw her, the soft click of the door, the pause that told me she was deciding whether to stay. "I don't have car trouble," she said. I nodded. I figured. She didn't smile. She stood near the counter, hands folded together too tightly, knuckles pale. She looked composed from a distance, but up close I could see it. The strain around her eyes, the way her jaw set like she was holding something back. "I can't keep pretending this is casual," she said. The words landed without heat. No accusation, just truth. I leaned against the counter, suddenly aware of how small the space felt. "Neither can I." That surprised her. She blinked once, then looked away, toward the window. Outside, someone passed by laughing, unaware of how quiet the room had become. "This wasn't supposed to happen," she said. "I'm too old for this kind of confusion. I should know better." I didn't argue. I watched her hands instead, how they loosened, then tightened again, like she didn't trust them. "What do you think is happening?" I asked. She exhaled slowly. "I think I noticed you when I shouldn't have. I think I enjoyed being seen in a way I forgot I missed." Her voice wavered, just slightly. "And I think that scares me more than it should." I swallowed. "Because of me?" "Because of everything," she said. "Because this doesn't fit anywhere." We stood there, facing each other, the air thick with things we weren't touching. I wanted to step closer. I didn't. That restraint felt louder than any move I could make. "I don't want to be a mistake," I said quietly. Her head snapped up. The look she gave me then, sharp, wounded, cut deeper than anger would have. "You're not," she said immediately. Too fast, like she needed me to believe it. "Then what am I?" She opened her mouth, closed it. Her shoulders sagged a fraction, like she'd lost a fight she didn't know she was in. "You're—" She stopped, pressed her lips together. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. "You're the part of my life I didn't plan for. And I don't know what to do with that." The honesty hung between us, fragile. I stepped closer, just enough that she could feel me if she wanted to. She didn't move away. She didn't move closer either. Her eyes searched my face like she was memorizing something she might have to give up. "We can stop," I said, "if that's what you need." She laughed once, breathless, almost broken. "That's the cruel part," she said. "I don't know if stopping would hurt less." Her eyes glistened, but she didn't let the tears fall. She straightened, like habit kicking in, like years of holding herself together on instinct. "I'm afraid," she said. "Not of me, not of us, just afraid." And in that moment, standing there with my hands useless at my sides, I realized the worst part wasn't that we hadn't touched. It was that we both wanted to, and neither of us knew how to survive what came after. She didn't come back for a while after that. A week, maybe more. I stopped counting because counting made it feel like waiting, and waiting made me stupidly hopeful. Then one evening, just as I was pulling the gate halfway down, my phone buzzed. "Are you still there?" I stared at the screen longer than necessary before typing back. "Yeah." She arrived 10 minutes later, breath slightly uneven, like she'd rushed but didn't want to admit it. She didn't look around this time, didn't make small talk. She walked straight to the counter and set something down between us. It was an envelope. Old. The corners were soft. The paper yellowed just enough to tell me it had been carried around longer than it should have been. "I need you to see this," she said. Her voice was steady, but her hands weren't. She folded them together, then pulled them apart again. Couldn't decide what to do with them. I didn't touch the envelope yet. "What is it?" "A letter," she said. From a long time ago. I waited. She nodded once, permission given. Inside was a single page, handwritten. The ink had faded slightly, but the words were still clear. I didn't read it all. It felt wrong, but I saw enough. Someone telling her they loved her. Someone apologizing for leaving. Someone promising they'd come back. They never did, she said quietly. I looked up. Her eyes were fixed on the counter, not on me. He was younger than me too, she added, like that detail had been lodged in her throat for years. Everyone told me it was a phase, that I'd get over it. Did you? I asked. She smiled faintly. I learned how to live around it. She reached out and tapped the envelope once. I found this again the night of the family gathering. I hadn't thought about him in years. And then suddenly I was standing in a room full of noise, feeling exposed. I knew what she was saying before she said it, and still, it landed hard. You remind me of who I was back then, she said. Not him. Me. The shop felt too small again. Too quiet. I didn't come looking for him, she went on. I came because being around you made me feel like I hadn't completely disappeared. I didn't know how to respond without cheapening it. So I didn't rush. That's not nothing, I said finally. She nodded. That's what scares me. She slid the envelope back toward herself, then stopped, hesitated, and pushed it toward me again instead. I don't want to carry this alone anymore, she said. I took it then. Not the letter, just the envelope. Our fingers brushed. Not accidentally. Not deliberately either. Just enough to register. Her breath caught. Mine did too. Thank you, she whispered, like I'd done something bigger than stand there. She didn't stay long after that. No lingering. No promises. At the door, she paused, hand on the handle. You didn't fix me, she said without turning around. But you shifted something. Then she left. I stood there long after, the envelope warm in my hand, realizing that whatever this was between us, it wasn't replacing a past. It was waking something she'd buried carefully. And now that it was awake, neither of us knew how to put it back. It didn't happen all at once. There was no dramatic reunion, no moment where everything suddenly made sense. It happened quietly, the way real things do. She started coming by again, not often, not rarely. Just enough that it stopped feeling like coincidence. Sometimes she'd bring coffee. Sometimes she wouldn't say much at all. We learned how to sit in the same space without reaching for reasons. One evening, after closing, we sat on the steps outside the shop. The streetlight flickered overhead, unreliable. Cars passed, then stopped passing. The city settled into its nighttime rhythm. She exhaled and leaned back on her hands. I keep waiting for the moment this turns into a mistake, she said. I watched the way the light caught the faint lines at the corner of her eyes. Lines that spoke of laughter, stress, endurance, a life lived forward. And I asked. It hasn't, she said. That worries me. I nodded. Me too. She smiled at that. A real one this time. Tired, but unguarded. I'm not confused anymore, she said after a while. I'm just careful. I can live with careful. She turned her head toward me, studied my face like she was checking for cracks. You're not asking for promises. I'm not offering any either, I said. Just honesty. That seemed to settle something. Her shoulders dropped, just a fraction. We didn't talk for a bit after that. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was shared. She crossed her ankles, her shoe brushing mine lightly, and neither of us moved away. I don't want to feel younger, she said softly. I want to feel present. You do, I said. When you're here. Her breath stuttered. She didn't look at me right away. When she did, her eyes were bright, not with tears, with recognition. I see you, she said. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't romantic in the way stories like to make it. But it was everything. She reached for my hand then. Slowly. Gave me time to pull away if I wanted to. I didn't. Our fingers laced naturally, like they'd done this before somewhere else, some other version of us. Her thumb brushed over my knuckle, absent-minded, grounding. She leaned her forehead against my shoulder, not asking, not apologizing, just resting. We stayed like that as the streetlight finally steadied overhead. I'm not running, she said quietly. I'm not chasing, I replied. That was the agreement. Unspoken. Solid. When she eventually stood to leave, she squeezed my hand once before letting go. Not a goodbye. Not a promise. Just a choice. I watched her walk to her car, calm, unhurried. She didn't look back this time either, and for the first time, it didn't feel like loss. It felt like the beginning of something we were finally brave enough not to name. I'm telling you this from a quieter place now. Not quieter because everything worked out perfectly. It didn't, but quieter because I stopped fighting what this meant to me. Time passed. Life kept happening around us. Bills, routines, obligations that didn't pause just because two people finally saw each other clearly. We didn't rush into anything. That mattered. What we built wouldn't have survived speed. She's still careful. Maybe she always will be. But it's different now. Not fear, more like intention. She learned how to stay without disappearing into herself, how to let moments exist without immediately bracing for the end. I watched her laugh more easily. I watched her rest without guilt. I watched her stop apologizing for wanting. As for me, I changed in ways I didn't expect. I stopped confusing intensity with meaning. I learned that presence is louder than pursuit, that being chosen quietly can feel stronger than being chased loudly. I learned that love doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it arrives like relief. We don't talk about the age difference much, not because it vanished, but because it stopped being the headline. What mattered more was how we listened, how we paused, how we didn't rush to fill silence with promises we couldn't keep. Sometimes we sit together and don't say anything at all. She'll reach for my hand without looking. I'll feel the weight of that small gesture and understand how much courage it took for her to get there. For both of us. Looking back, I realized the secret she mentioned that first night wasn't the letter. It wasn't her past. It wasn't even me. The secret was that she was lonely in a way no one had noticed, and that I was too. We didn't fix each other. We didn't save each other. We just met at the right moment, imperfect and honest, and chose not to look away. And sometimes, that's enough. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?